let's say our universe is here at the top, our 3D universe, and we say, well, cosmology says everything has a cause, right? So that means there had to be an original cause. So we move back and we say, oh, there was an original cause. It was the Big Bang, right? But then logic says that, well, if everything has a cause, which was the premise, then the first cause had to have a cause. And we keep going down, and then that cause had to have a cause, that cause had to have a cause, that cause had to have a cause. And we get into this infinite regress, which is basically meaningless. And that's how that ends in nihilism. And the way that I see this being resolved in physics is this idea of the 4D universe. This would be the original cause of our 3D universe. That would resolve that issue. There would be more questions down here about the causes of these universes, but it would solve our 3D universe that, as we know it. So that's a physical situation, but I'm more interested in perception and perceptual divergence in this way. So if we look at rationalism and reason, which is basically logic, a series of if-thens, if A then B, if B then C, therefore if A then C, and any other kind of syllogism, modus ponens, modus tollens, inverse, converse, all of those things, the way that they end in nihilism, for example, here we talked about cosmology, but I'll just give another example of how logic fails. You might look at the design proof for the existence of God, for example. So you say, well, everything is designed, therefore it had to have a designer. So you move down. You say, well, if everything's designed, the designer had to have a designer. So you move down more, and that designer had to have a designer. It ends in nihilism. Or even if you look at something totally different, such as if you look at morals and ethics, for example, abortion, and you say, and there's a position that, okay, as soon as something becomes a human being, it's wrong to kill the human being. Well, when does an embryo become a human being? Is it when the brain is formed in a certain way? Or is it when consciousness comes into play in a certain way? But when you do that, you end up dividing time infinitely because it's hard to distinguish. You can't distinguish the moment when something became a sentient being versus when it was not. So it goes into something else that's like an infinite regress because the time gets divided infinitely. And when logic fails this way, Nietzsche would revert to the Overman state of mind, which is a state of mind that's free of all conditioning, moral conditioning, societal conditioning, social constructs. Immanuel Kant would say to resort to faith, or Albert Camus would say to revolt against nihilism and embrace nihilism as a challenge. And in the spirit of imagining Sisyphus actually being happy with the situation that he's in. If we're staying in logic, yeah, these are the options. But I believe in diverging from logic in itself into another mode of perception. I'm not sure what that would be. I think we can experience it in moments so far, and I think that I can isolate those moments in the artwork. But I believe in diverging into another mode of perception that is not necessarily logic, but could include logic or be logical. So that I'm calling 4D perception right now, and I see it as kind of poking this hole through nihilism. And I've used, in my recent work, I've used these physical circumstances as a backdrop and as a parallel to be able to illuminate these.